Good afternoon, buenas tardes, bienvenidos a ¿Qué pasa, mujer? Welcome to ¿Qué pasa, mujer? Estamos aquí todos los domingos a las 4 de la tarde. We're here every Thursday at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We are ¿Qué pasa, mujer? Is myself. My name is Viviana Andrade. And then we have Nicte Cuevas. And then we have Maddie Garcia. So we are here together most of the time together. And our show is a show where we can have transparency and we talk about different topics. Whatever we come up with, that's what we come up with. So we're going to go ahead and bring Nicte on. I don't know if Maddie's here yet. We're having some technical difficulties. Nicte, ¿cómo estás?
Buenos días, I am sentada.
Estás
How are
sentada.
you? Sentada.
Estoy sentada también.
Ay, qué bueno. Mira, hey, we're matching in our colors.
We are.
Oh,
I
I
love
know.
it. I didn't have time to do my nails, so I'm not going to show them a
Oh,
lot today.
yeah, I don't have any mine's like plain nothing. I have not had any time since we've gotten here really to um, you know, take care of me, do a lot of like the me self-care stuff. I think it's just
Yeah,
been, a lot longer to settle in than we have ever, in all the years of moving. But from what I've heard from people who've done this too, is that this moving overseas is a lot more challenging and kind of re-getting settled in. So just trying to accept that and honor that and not being como se dice, like, okay, yeah, I want this done, done, done. So learning a lot of patience and slowing down has
that's good.
been, yeah, it's been challenging if I'm being transparent. I know that's kind of like some of the things that we're talking about today, but it's definitely affected how I process some things, but I'm trying to push and not let that affect my overall excitement. I think there's just and then personal things like with family health. I'm very empathetic. You know that about me, Viviana. I care about how everyone's doing, but I'm learning that I have to block some of those things to if it's starting to affect me. I have to block that and just be and try to be more present. So a lot of things that we're trying to do in the house, we're trying to set up a little garden here because produce is very expensive. So we're
And
trying to
here,
grow our
you're,
own.
¿dónde estás when you say here?
Yes, great question. Hawaii. So yeah, it's beautiful here, very expensive. Super thankful to be here, but definitely trying to make the best and grow our own little garden. So we've been trying to start our little germination and all that in la cocinita. We have like a little lamp. So it's been nice and it's a big difference from where we were in Vegas before, where it was desert and you could barely grow anything. So definitely having a different perspective in things. And then last thing where I'm learning to be thankful is I don't know if you guys, whoever has watched the show before, I know Viviana and Maddie know this, but I would always get sick when we were in Vegas and I would lose my voice. Well, I found out that I'm severely allergic, like extremely allergic to some things. And I think that house that we used to live in just seemed to be flourishing with that. So I am thankful I have some answers. And now it's not me like going crazy. I'm like, there's definitely something wrong. Like, I know something wrong. So, yeah, I'm thankful for some answers for that. How about you, Viviana?
So when you were talking, I made me think about, just gratitude. The other day I was talking to a lady. We were like, it was a group. It was like 15 of us. And they were doing like a little icebreaker. So, kind of like, what's your name and what's your favorite season? That's what the question was. So everybody said, spring, summer, fall, whatever. But this one lady said, she said, I like all of them. Right. She said,
Mm.
I enjoy all of them in different ways because I've lived in a country where we only had one or two seasons. So to be able to be here, like in Virginia, I've been able to experience all the seasons. So she said,
Oh.
I love all of them, right? So when
Mhm.
she said that, I was like, man, because I picked fall. Like fall is my favorite. But
Mhm.
now I'm kind of like start to like gravitate over to her way of doing things, because I
Love
think we
that.
really need to embrace, like for you, Nick, that you're coming from the desert to now to being Hawaii. So it's different, right? And I just
Mhm.
think just to be able to embrace the change, because you don't know why you're really there. Yes, you're there because you guys got
Mhm.
deployed and everything, but there's other things that are happening even for your business, right?
Mhm.
New experiences, new people that you come in contact with. Like your office has officially moved to Hawaii, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so it's different, like the because I even saw a post of yours that it was more like Hawaiian driven, like your design, and
Mhm.
maybe you couldn't have done that had you been in somewhere else. So I think it's
Yeah.
cool that you're doing that.
It's true. Yeah, and
Mm.
it's a blessing, and I think that's one of the things we love about after the dust settles, where we try to every city has their own culture. Like there's Vegas had their own culture, we were in San Antonio that had their own culture, and I think it's really nice to be able to experience that. Here, I think obviously there's such rich Hawaiian culture that even our son has been learning some Hawaiian in school, and he tells us, "Mommy, Daddy, why don't you speak Hawaiian?" I'm like, that's a great question. Maybe we can learn and you can teach us." And I love that he's already so excited about that experience that I am very thankful that he gets to live that. The only kid in our families, in both of sides of my family, that gets to experience that. So yeah, trying to remember that thankfulness, kind of going back to that when you're in your the humbug, como se dice,
Yeah.
moment. But I
Yeah,
love that.
maybe because you get so used to that being your norm that when you change your setting, it's just, depende como tú lo haces. Like,
Sí.
por ejemplo, where I live, I've heard, like people that really have not gotten out too much.
Mhm.
There's a main street called Jefferson Avenue. So some people say, some people have never left Jefferson Avenue, so all they know is this. And I
Oh.
just think that it's so awesome that you, Nikte, and we've been able to travel a little bit and experience other
Mhm.
things and other cultures, and it just that's just the path that we have, and it's part of the
Mhm.
gratitude to wake up every morning and be able to have that, because not
Yeah.
everybody, everybody's life, everybody's path is different, but
Mhm.
just I think just the fact that we're able to acknowledge it is important.
Mhm. I agree. I agree. And that's such a
Mhm.
beautiful way. And I love how you share the loving different seasons. Like, I think that that is a beautiful way to, because our life has different seasons too, like different stages when we're single, when we get married, when we have kids, like and then your kids get older. There's like all these seasons in life. So I think that's a beautiful way to think about changing seasons in
Yeah.
perspective of how we absorb life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because everything, like, I don't. If you guys know, I don't watch the news a lot.
Mhm.
So I should watch it sometimes, but then when I start to watch it, I'm so disappointed because it's bad news.
Mhm.
But I do get the headliners. So I just
Mhm.
think it's important I think it's all about having balance, right?
Mhm.
So even with your family, when you get married, like to still be able to, check on them or check in with your friends or do some me time. Because I don't
Mhm.
know if I mentioned it, but I always see life as a pie chart, right? So in this pie
Mhm.
chart, you have all these different sections of who you are as an individual. So I was talking to my mom's friend today, and she said, "You do so much." She was like, "How do you do it? Like, how do you get it done?" And I have my planner, and so my planner is like it starts from 5:30 in the morning down to 10 o'clock, but my day doesn't start till about 7. I wake up at 7. I'm out of the house by 8:30.
Mhm.
And whatever I get done during those hours.
Mhm.
And I just do it, and it just works out. And she was just saying, like, how do you get to do all of that? And I think part of it too, two of it is being organized. And I'm not 100% there, but I write
Mhm.
it down, because I know if I don't write it down, I'm not going to get it done. So
Mhm.
that's big for me. And just being in your element, I think it's important, because then I I do a lot, but I don't even feel like I do that much at the end of the day.
Mhm.
Usually the end of the month is really busy for us because that's when I do my food distribution, and then that's when we do the senior citizen social for
Mhm.
Hispanic families. So
Mhm.
that it's busy, but it's like such a good busy, you
Yeah,
know.
I love
Just
it.
and I was talking to another lady, and same thing, she was telling me I have a big heart and all this other stuff, and I was like, I think the biggest thing for me is when you see somebody struggle with something and then they come out of it. And I'm sure
Mhm.
you experience it too, like even on a professional level, Nick,
Mhm.
where somebody may come to you frustrated because they've had a bad experience with another graphic designer, and they're just kind of like hasta aquí.
Sí.
But then they
Ajá.
come to you and to see the satisfaction when you give them this work that, like their business, their logo, whatever project you're doing for them, that they kind of get to see it. And
Mhm.
it's so satisfying, ¿verdad?
Yeah, see, that's so true. Yeah, and it's I think I love what you said, how it's almost like we guide them through a journey where we don't necessarily like on certain things, like yes, we might do things for them if they hire us for things, but even with education, like you can teach children and even the parents to go through this process and just taking that journey with them from A to Z. It is really when you have such a profound impact on people and they share that, it does have, for us, I think there's a bigger reward, not just the monetary, like getting paid for your services, but how we can make someone like, oh, this is really great, I needed this. So yeah, I definitely do love that transition. And you were saying something about being organized or kind of time tracking your day, and I love that you're doing that. And I'm going to be transparent. I think, I don't know if you've heard it, where it takes 90 days to build a routine where you can actually stick to that. And for us with this move, like we were good on our routines. Like I had my planner, I had like everything. I was doing my intention setting in the morning and night. And with the whole move, everything got so discombobulated that I'm in that zone where you are so sin enfoque. You know, you've lost so much focus that you have to kind of like push yourself to do little by little and say, part of me, I wanted to go back like where you are at right now. Like, okay, I kind of have my day. I'm like, I want to go back to that like right now. But I've learned that I have to baby step myself again to build that routine in a new place, different like environments, and acknowledging that has been hard because I think I just want to take, like we all did, like take the ground running. Yeah, boom. Okay. Now we're in our new normal. But that has been challenging. And I think that it's on in the future, I'm sure I'll look at it like the seasons, where you lose yourself or you lose your focus and structure, and you kind of regain a new structure, new focus. So I love that you were saying that. And I kind of had a question for you. When you have your to-do list, right? And let's say something happens that required one of those to-dos to take the entire day. Do you find yourself getting frustrated that you didn't get to meet those, or you said, okay, well, I'll just push them on till tomorrow? Like, how do you normally handle that in terms of not letting that stress you?
It depends. Because I do get frustrated, right?
Mhm.
I try because I have a list of things that I write down, and then I think about the book, The One Thing, right? So
Mhm.
I know I still write a lot of things, but I focus on the one thing, even though I have the other things written down, right? Because I have a whole week to kind of like accomplish them. So
Mhm.
like, and it's so funny you mentioned this, Nick, there, because yesterday I was like, okay, I'm gonna get a pedicure. Like that, there's other things that I'm doing,
Mhm.
but like I'm getting a pedicure, right?
Mhm.
And I got it done. So today, I'm organizing my closet. Like I'm gonna get it done.
Uh-huh.
So I've been doing that. Today's day two for me.
Yay!
But yeah, typically, I do feel that sense of in my brain. Out of the things that I have to do, I know which
Mhm.
one is my number one priority. You know, like
Mhm.
for example, with my business, if I know I have to turn these invoices in by Friday or whatever date, like I
Mhm.
don't care what time I'm going to bed, like I'm gonna get that done because it's priority. The
Mhm.
other things can kind of fall on the back burner. Or if
Mhm.
I can, I can delegate it to somebody else. Or some things I just didn't get it done, or it'll just be moved to another day or another week.
Mhm. I love that. I love
But
that.
I
So you have
try to
your
not feel that stress. Yeah.
yeah. So you have your non-negotiables and then you kind of give yourself flexibility in those other areas where I have to get this done. And I love that. And I think that's also speaks to why you're so successful in being able to do a lot of things because you've kind of built that framework for yourself and allowed that flexibility for, oh, I didn't get to do, you know, I don't know, a pedicure today, but I'll make sure I do it tomorrow. But like building in those, like, no, I have to get it done. And that it's for you too, because I think that that's important. I think sometimes we don't realize how much our environments affect our mental health too. If our house is in un total desastre or like a whole disarray, eventually that kind of eats up at you because I feel like that does like mental clutter where you can't really think clearly. And it is, yeah, I sometimes get
I
into
tell
those
people
modes.
all the time, right? I tell women, like, your purse has to be organized. Your car
Oh
has to
my
be
goodness.
organized, right? I tell the kids, your book bag has to be organized. If you have a locker, it has to be organized. Because if
Mhm.
those things are not organized, I'm sure your bedroom is not organized. And
I
I'm
see.
sure your thoughts are not organized.
Mhm. Yeah, it really
So
makes such a
I
difference.
have I have this book that I wrote, but I haven't published it. But I forgot the name of it. But it has to do with mothers and sons, and it's kind of
Mm.
like 10 tips or something, like 10 or 12 tips
Mhm.
for mothers that handle boys. Because as you guys know, I have two
Mhm.
sons, and so one of the tips is empty out the book bag, like dump everything on the floor
Mhm.
once a week. And then I actually have a picture of my son Joel because we did that
Mhm.
one time. We did it several times, but I have this one picture of him, and he had all these papers that were like folded,
Oh
just
my
messed up pencils. Like, luckily he didn't have food in there. But with
uh-huh.
my older son, one time I went to his locker at school and there was a couple of peanut butter jelly sandwiches in there.
Oh.
So if we do that once a week,
Mhm.
it makes a difference. But
Yeah.
one of the things that I mentioned in the book is to not penalize them. Like, don't punish them for
Mhm.
doing this activity with them, right? Because this should be a moment of transparency, and actually
Mhm.
to bring bond between you and your child, right?
Mhm.
Because I'm not going to punish you, we're just trying to change the behavior. So
Yeah.
next time, don't
Oh.
do this, or so I just
Mhm.
think, back to the point that you were making, Nikte, if there's clutter in here, like, you really have to dig in you. And it starts, like, how people say you have to make your bed in the mornings because it's like a sense
Mhm.
of accomplishment that you did something today. But I'm
Mhm.
big on, like, my purse, because there's times that I just kind of dump like receipts or whatever.
Mhm.
But at least once during the day, like, I go in there, make sure I don't have any trash or stuff
Love
like
that.
that, because it's important. Like, for gentlemen, your wallet should be organized.
Mhm.
And I get cluttered sometimes in my car
Mhm.
or in my purse. It
Mhm.
does get cluttered, but I start to feel anxiety because I think I have like low key OCD.
Yeah.
So, and
Uh-huh. Yeah.
this is self diagnosis,
Yeah.
and attention deficit as well. I've done self diagnosis for that as well. But
Mhm.
yeah, I feel anxiety, and I didn't realize it till this year that, like, I actually was able to identify it as anxiety. But yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, I go through that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's rough, but it is, great when we can address that we know what is causing this stress. Because I have started to notice that it affects me, like, okay, I tell my husband, "Hey, I'm not feeling all that great today because I'm frustrated. I have, not been able to set XYZ up here. I wanna have the things clear." So, being able to acknowledge how those things affect us is great. And I think here's the kicker too también is that if we wait too long to address those, then things pile up and then it's like that overwhelm of like, I can't do this. And you know how people have that they freeze, you know, where it's that flight or fight mode that they'd rather just not handle that and then just go somewhere else. And then luego se le hace el desorden allá. So kind of clearing up those things really does
Yeah, and then it
help
becomes your
us.
norm. It becomes your
Yeah.
norm.
Yep. Yeah. I
Yeah.
love your idea about emptying out your book bag or like your child's book bag every week. I try to tell my son to like we call it items. Do you have any items for me? And sometimes I forget like every day, but I want that to be kind of more of like, all right, a routine. Like they come home, pulls out the items. Y me dice, and we're not quite at that point of leaving food behind yet because I know my brother was bad about that when we were kids. So I try to ask him like, "Did you eat your food?" Okay, great. If he doesn't eat it, then I ask like, "Why didn't you not eat it?" And sometimes it's because they had like popcorn and pizza or someone's birthday. I'm like, "Okay, I understand that." And other times like he told me it's because I didn't have much time to go play, so I only ate a couple of things. I'm like, "Okay, well, why were we eating too slow?" Like I try to not like you're saying reprimand for trying to building these habits, but I think that that also teaches us to build in these habits as well. I love your thing about the purse. I have strategically started to use one of those tiny ones que son, you know, like the little square ones that you just kind of cross over. No sé cómo se llaman, but they're small and I just have the credit cards, the my license ID, whatever it is, and that's it. Yeah, sencillo. And it kind of makes it easier for me to be more on the go. But I do remember that once I use bigger purses, I feel like I have so much space. I'm like, I don't want to get this cluttered. You know, you kind of just keep that mentality of organization and the things that you use and do. So I do like that.
Yeah, me too. There's actually I have a little wallet and I need to change it because it's like I started off with just like four credit cards or a discount card or, my driver's license. But now all of a sudden I have a lot more. So I
Mhm.
need to switch it to another one that has like little compartments because sometimes it's so embarrassing. I find myself at the store and I'm like taking all of them out and just going through whichever one I'm looking for. And I'm like, oh my God, so embarrassing. So I have to change. I'm going to change that too today. Like today, I'm going to change it.
Nice. Nice. I
Because every
like
time I
that.
do it, I'm like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing.
Yeah.
But we want to say hello to Nikaudi Jackson and Tangi Okwe. They're saying hello. And I'm
Hi,
sure
hola.
Lily is watching us as well, and Angelica, and all of our peoples that watch us every Sunday. So it's cool. I always like to acknowledge you guys because um we do this for you. We do this for the
Mhm.
people that watch us. And I know our producer, Mark, they kind of run the show throughout the week as well in other platforms. So a lot of people get to listen to the message. And today we're just kind of like touching bases about where we are with the things that we started off, like the first quarter is over of the year and we're running into May. So Cinco de Mayo will be here soon and then it'll be June and it's like half the year. And then
Yeah.
next thing you know, it's almost Christmas. So
Sí.
está pasando muy rápido.
Yes.
So we just kind of in our where are we with our goals that we had talked about at the beginning of the year? Um, what are some new things that perhaps we're doing? Because sometimes we might have the idea of this is what I'm going to do in January, but then like the month passes and then you're like that wasn't a good idea, and it's
Mhm.
okay to do that. Olili Matos, qué lindo bronceado que tienes, Nicte.
Ay,
Ya te
thank
ves
you. Y
hawaiana.
no es el bronceado, I think it's just maybe good lighting. Thank you.
Está como glowing.
Ay,
Porque
thank
está
you.
contenta porque está en una área tropical.
Sí, sí,
Y
yes, I
nuevas
saw that.
experiencias y los ojos están viendo cosas nuevas,
Mhm, yeah.
right?
Sí, sí.
So, in a couple of months, I'm going to ask you this question, but I'm going to ask it today as well.
Uh-huh.
So, somebody told me that eventually Hawaii becomes boring because it's an island, and then you don't like once you go around the island and see everything, then like, what do you do?
Yes, we've heard that from a lot of people. I don't think I could find it boring because I love beaches. O sea, you know me, I grew up by that. Like, so for me, that's very grounding. The irony of it is that we've been here a month. We just marked our month mark, and we've only been to the beach once, and it was just to kind of check it out, to kind of get our bearings. Um, so it's nice. I think that we just, what we were, my husband and I were talking about, is being able to explore and do things, but not try to do it all at once, like kind of space it out. And what I also think is that there's so much cultural opportunities too to experience, that it's not just seeing things. I think where they, what does it call, they get islanditis or something, they call it something.
Mhm.
Que, people just like, oh, I miss being in the mainland, kind of like where everything's easy and accessible. And I think it's a lot of that, us being used to having certain luxuries, because they really are
Mhm.
luxuries, like a Michael's, a Hobby Lobby. Like, we don't have those here. And so it kind of goes back to where I try to think like, oh, well, when I was growing up, we didn't have any of these stores. So it's kind of like, I feel like I'm kind of like back home in a way. The environment, the community, the people, like there's things that kind of make me feel back at home. So I'm reminding myself like, oh, there's no Hobby Lobby, there's no como se llama, Michael's. Like, oh well, there's other stores. So kind of trying to have that perspective. And I think that that's what gets people a lot, is that there's certain things that we can't get here, or even if you order cosas básicas, like that what is it, the first world country, for first world mentality, things from Amazon that they won't ship here, like anything that has batteries or aerosols, like cannot be shipped here. The other day I was trying to find some shoes, they said they would not ship here. So it's learning to be like, okay, well, let me see what else I can find. But yeah, for now, we haven't gotten bored of it. I think a lost, we haven't been able to explore as much, but we all love it and we feel happy. It's much slower here, and it's really nice to just, I think we've just been go go go, and I think that's what we like about the slowness of just being present, which has been nice.
Yeah. And it's nice that your son is being exposed to different something different. The culture is different. He's probably gonna love spam.
Yeah, well, yeah, we haven't, I don't think we've tried it yet. Like, at least since we've been here. We've tried it before, but we haven't.
Yeah,
There's a lot of spam variations here.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, it's I've had it before, but I saw something on it must have been a documentary in
Mhm.
just the different ways that they,
You make it. Yeah.
make it. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's
just the
really.
food and the culture.
Mhm.
So I had a question for you. You being in so many different places, right?
Mhm.
Whether it was in Latin America or here in the United States, how do you cope with like you've talked a little bit about it, but I want you to kind of like dig in a little bit more
Mhm.
in reference to coping with the change, right? The changes that
Mhm.
you're talking about,
Mhm.
but making sure that your son isn't so impacted or that he's impacted in a positive way so that he doesn't get anxiety over the change.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a great question. I will be honest. I think the changes from breaking everything down, putting it in boxes, and restarting fresh, it's kind of like you have to start new every time. When we didn't have our son, I call it being single, but I don't know what the term is, like when you're married and you don't have children yet. When we were in that stage of our life, or in that season, it was so much easier to pick up and move, because we knew it was me, my husband, and our dog. And our dog did have some separation anxiety. So that kind of helped us be aware of how changes might impact different beings. But when we had our son, then we had to think about, especially in this move was the most challenging, all across the board. And I think our
So far.
son, yeah, definitely. And our son went through this like heightened sensory, more of feeling afraid to be left behind. And so we kept having to be like, no, no, we're all going together. Look, help us pack. So trying to have him be a part of the process was very important for us, but explain like if he was acting out, which he didn't really act out as bad, but I think it was just more of like he would get frustrated and we'd tell him, okay, tell us, like I didn't grow up being able to speak my emotions. It was more like just suck it up. So I wanted to be intentional about tell me what you're feeling. Okay, I understand. And sometimes he would just persist and we're like, okay, papito, we get it, but we have to be strong. This is going to be part of the process and you're going to make new friends. We're going to be in a new school. Because at first he was nervous to get lost in the school. And I think it's very common with military kids that these changes affect them so much, especially when they're in an age where they're a lot more aware that you kind of have to almost forget about yourself to a point of you adjusting and focusing on helping them adjust. And then while they're in school, then you're trying to like adjust yourself. So it's been very challenging. And I think this move has definitely made me surrender a lot. Like I got frustrated, things were broken. And it's not about the material stuff because I don't like to hold like materialistic stuff to like, oh my God, si no tengo esto, I don't survive. But I think it's because you're trying to rebuild a home, your safe space that's yours, whether you're renting, you're buying, whatever it is, like you're always seeking that this is where I come home or where I lay my head to rest, donde me siento tranquila and at peace. That is challenging because we didn't have that for so long that like those 3 months where we were in that limbo, even though we were still in the other house, we didn't have our furniture. So it was weird. It was really awkward. And that has been the most prolonged time that we were floating. So we kind of like that 3 month period that I was telling you is like rewiring yourself. Like we really had to learn to rewire. And I will be honest, this has been like the most challenging one. And there's been times where I've given myself a lot of temper tantrums that I'm like adult ones where I'm like, it's not that I'm not happy to be here. I love being here, but it's just the change, the transition, all the things that we have to do, like schooling every time. It's challenging, and it kind of wears on you. So learning to just okay, you know what? This is the situation. What can I do now? My husband's really good about that. I've gotten better as he's kind of encouraged me, but I think that this move definitely made me more like, okay, well, you you have no control. Like you essentially have no say in that. It is what it is. Now, what can you do from that? But sometimes going from that acceptance to, okay, here's what I can control has been challenging. That really has been. And I
Mhm.
think it's difficult when you don't have a say in it. I know there's people who have like como se dice, son nómados, like they're nomads and they choose to live
Yeah.
one here one time and then the other, but it's from choice, like they get to go explore, like, oh, here's a good place. Like there's a whole different perspective that goes from that when you have the choice than when you don't. So
But
it's
it's so funny, Nick, that you say that. But earlier you said that when you were growing up, you didn't really have a voice. You just had to suck it up. So it's
Mhm.
like you're doing the same thing now. Like you're like it's almost like you were trained for it before. It's
Mhm.
just in a different capacity.
I've had to learn to suck it up as an adult.
Yeah, so maybe that's why you're able to do it.
Yeah,
That's crazy because
yeah.
it's just it's lateral, but as an
Mhm.
adult.
Yeah, it really yeah, it's like you said earlier too in the show that sometimes we don't know why we navigate things or Diosito te pone like certain things in our path that may not manifest until like 10, 20 years later that you're like, "Oh, that's why I learned how to,
Yeah,
be like that or,
yeah.
do these things." And yeah, I think, because my dad had to travel a lot when we were kids from his work, I'm able to understand a lot more when my husband has to deploy. Like it's definitely different work styles, but it gives me more empathy and understanding. Like it's draining, it's changing, it's tough on them, that separation. So yeah, I never made that connection until I think his last deployment that I was like, oh, okay, that kind of helped. And I was able to help my son with things that I knew I experienced from being far away from my dad. So, yeah, it is
Yeah,
very,
that's
very
interesting.
interesting.
So on my end, here where I live, we pretty much have all the military bases here, right? And so I get to meet a lot of military people, and I get to meet a lot of military brats, right? So when
Mhm.
they were little, they travel the world, and as adults, they don't talk about those struggles. They just talk
Mhm.
about, oh, we lived in Germany, we lived here, we lived there, so they get to talk about the experiences when they were already there, not how
Mhm.
they got there. So
Yeah.
I hope that that's encouraging for you and your son, because one day he's not going to remember all of this. He's just going to
Mhm.
remember the beauty, the positive things of Hawaii or Las Vegas, unless, of course, something dramatic happens. But
Mhm.
typically, from all these people that I've met, that they were military kids, they just have the memories of being in all these different
Mhm.
places, and
Yeah.
it's in a positive note when they talk about it.
Mhm. Yeah, I do definitely see that, and I've every person that I've kinda come in contact, I always hear that their kids love it here. I think where it gets harder for them is that as they get older, I think, like, middle school, high school, where they have to leave their friends, that is where I hear that they struggle a lot with, where it's that, like, "I don't wanna leave my friends behind," and sometimes
Yeah,
I've even heard that they'll finish off their school year, like, the mom and the kids will stay while the dad goes to or it's if it's vice versa, if it's a woman that's in service, that they'll go to the new duty station while the parents and the kids the other parent, like, finishes off the school year, so,
yeah,
yeah, it's we're trying to live it as much as possible. And when we walk around, we're like, man, we're having perspective,
yeah,
We really like what we have, where, how we're setting things up. And I think also también estando encerrados, just being enclosed in your house all the time isn't good for you. So when we go on a walk, we're like, oh, we can do this thing here. We can do that. Look, there's a mango tree. Can I get some mangoes? Like all of these little things that change your environment has been trying to keep that in mind.
yeah. Yeah,
Y
Veronica says
Verónica.
that was tough when she was a military kid, because
Ay,
she
me imagine
changed. She
that.
changed. I think her dad was in the military, so they've had to move to different places. Veronica, thanks for watching us.
Thank
She
you.
says it's tough. Oh, positive note. On the positive note, we have social media and cell phones to make it easier to stay in touch.
That's so true.
Yes, that is true.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
wonder, and Veronica, if you can respond, uh, do you do you think that people end up staying in touch with people from all these different countries eventually, or you just go your own ways and end up losing connection?
Mhm.
Because, like Veronica says, because of social media, we can kind of stay connected. So, like, for example, with me, I grew up in North Bergen, New Jersey. And so there's a group on Facebook with everyone that grew up in North Bergen, New Jersey, like of
Mm.
all ages, right? But
Mhm.
then we also have a group of our graduation year.
Mhm.
So I may not necessarily talk to them, but de chismosa, I see it on Facebook all the time. Y ellos de chismosos, they probably see me too, but it's still a connection, right? So like,
Mhm.
I'm not in New Jersey, I'm not in North Bergen, New Jersey anymore. But if I were to live in that area and I were to see one of them, I would interact with them, you know.
Yeah.
But Facebook and social media does allow us to continue to stay connected in some
Mhm.
capacity.
Yeah.
So I think that's cool.
That is so true, and if you think about it, back in the day, what was it, like letters that they would porque even hasta the phone call would have been hard to do, so, we are really lucky to have as much as the negative side of social media people talk about,
Mhm.
I think there's that positive side of like, "Oh, see the chismosa. Oh, so and so is doing good. Oh, look where they at," doing all these things, so
Yeah.
it really does bring you closer through distance and yeah and
Mhm.
one of the things that I didn't even mention, but April is the month of the military child, so they've been doing a lot of things here on base and like surrounding stores where they are doing things for the kids, like even in his school they had a day where as the kids were coming in they had parents and volunteers and teachers all line up and clap And they were all wearing purple because that's like the color that they wear. And they were just clapping, clapping, clapping. And our son was like, "Oh, hi." Like he didn't know what was going on. So I was explaining it to him. Look, they're celebrating the military child. It's the month. Like he still doesn't get a lot of that yet. But it was
Right.
really beautiful that they did that very simple thing to acknowledge kids, because I do think that it can be very challenging for them, that transition. And just that was really nice just to experience, and
That is
just
nice.
like
Yeah.
seeing him, like he's just
Veronica said, I wish I had social media back in the day because I lost contact
yes.
with my friends. So
Yeah.
definitely letters is what they had.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Which is
she said,
nice though, because I think it's personal too, the letters.
right. And Veronica also says maybe that's the reason why I don't have a clique of friends by
Mhm,
moving around. So
mhm,
Veronica and I were talking this morning, and she was saying she has a lot of friends, but all of her friends don't know each other. So like
mhm,
I'm friends
mhm.
with Veronica, but I don't know her other friends. So
Yeah,
she has other friends that don't know me, you know?
mhm.
So,
Yep,
but I think that's cool. I think that's cool.
mhm. You have different seasons of friends. I can totally relate to that, from having to move, and also know, like, oh, this group of friends is this type, like they like, I don't know, to go to the beach, and then the other friends that like to go to art things, or like you have different seasons of friends, which is kind of nice because you get to pick and choose where you're feeling the mood for. But yeah, it is, I think sometimes it can be a little lonely if you let it get to that point where you let that affect you, where like I don't have that. Some people who have lived, grown up in the same city all their life, and they have their friends, and they're all live next to each other, and their kids play, and their great grandchildren, like it's a different lifestyle.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, I think it's our perspective, how we let that help,
Yeah.
or affect you.
Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't the one to have a lot of friends because I'm an only child. So I
Mhm.
didn't really have a lot of friends, but I knew people, but I wasn't attached to them. Like it didn't hurt
Mhm.
to leave. Right.
Mhm.
And even today, I have friends, but it's like we use each other for different things. And I hate to use the word use, like using each
Mhm.
other, but like it that's what we do because it's the part of the friendship, right? So I have a friend, I know that I can call her and talk to her about anything. I know that
Mhm.
there's a friend that I know that I could call her and just vent about my son because she has a son, she's in a similar
Mhm.
situation. I know that I
Mhm.
can call this other friend to talk to her about my business frustrations. There's another friend that I can call and talk to her about my family frustrations and my mother, or different things
Mhm.
like that. So it's, and then they do it to me. They call me for certain
Mhm.
things, just like they have another friend they call for something else.
Yeah.
So I just think that that is the beauty of friendship, of true friendship, right?
Mhm.
Because I today I'm friends with people that I know if we don't talk for weeks or months, when we call each other, it's gonna be like not
It's
a
like
problem.
nothing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
know I build those friendships that that's how they are now because I'm not going to be
Mhm.
friends with you if you want to talk about 20 minutes as to why I haven't called you in 30
Thank
days.
you. Yes. Thank
You
you. I
know?
Yep.
So,
Because people have things going on in life. Life happens, and I think having those beautiful friendships where there is no grudge or no cantaleta, like, "Oh, why haven't you, like, hey, how are you
yeah.
doing? Oh, that's great. So tell me what's been going on. Like, let
Yeah,
me
like what's
know."
new?
Yeah, like, "Oh, blah, blah, oh, man, that's great." Like, picking up like nothing happened is the most beautiful friendship that you can have, which are extremely rare. And I know I've learned to cut ties when I get that cantaleta. Oh, well, I guess you're too good to talk to me. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Well,
okay.
sometimes you could put them in check too, Nikte.
Oh, absolutely. I
Yeah, you
have,
could
but
definitely put
you
them
get
in
to a
check.
point where like that's draining. And if it's a friendship, here's the other thing too, is where as the older I've gotten, the more I want positive around me. Not that if someone has a bad day, that's a bad thing, but I already have so many other things that I have to worry about, that if it's a recurring issue and they're not doing something about it, and it's more like you just want to like complain, and I get that, I have those moments, but if it's a recurring thing and then you're talking bad about everyone, and it's that I've had that around my life as a kid, and like I don't like that type of energy. So you kind of cleanse like a clean slate, which almost kind of happens when you move so frequently, is that you constantly have clean slates of like, all right, let me rebuild, let me reconnect with people, let me, kind of figure things out too. So yeah, it's
That's a good point because you
yeah.
get a fresh start every time.
Which, in Vegas, I didn't really have that many friends because I think you get to a point where you move so often that I was like, okay, I didn't really purposely make an effort to go and find new friends. And
So
um,
do you think it was like fear of having to end the relationships?
not at all. I don't know, because I can go to a place where I don't know anyone and talk to people. Like, I feel very comfortable. I think it's just I was so exhausted from come, go, corre aquí, corre allá, that I think I just wanted some quiet time to myself. I think that's what it was. I think it was more of that I can be an extrovert, but I can also have my introvert moments where I just want to heal myself and be in quiet and reflection and, the positive stuff. And I love what Veronica said. Yes, I don't like gossip. I disconnect. Another reason that don't have a clique of friends. I can totally relate to you. Totally relate to you. And I think that when we have good, positive people around us that just uplift us, but can be there, like you said, Viviana, you have people you can talk to, it makes a big difference. It really, really does make a big difference. I know this might be a whole nother subject, but the audiobook that we've been reading, I haven't even told you, but I've been listening to it. I think I'm in chapter 4 now.
I'm
It's
in chapter
fast.
3.
Oh, you
Me
are? I think
pasaste.
I know. I'm gonna have to slow down then. We
No,
have
no,
to
no.
catch up
I
on the
took a
chapter.
break for like a week, so you're good.
Oh, okay. It's really good because I think that it teaches us to even think of how the book, which I'll have to look up the title. Yes, I'm gonna be the what it's called, but it's a really great audiobook. And then it was starting to talk about terminology, how sometimes we carry issues and traumas that have been passed on from generation to generation. And sometimes how we react to things can be experiences that were genetically passed on to us. And there's been like science research that kind of proves that now. And I was seeing some of those things and I was like, oh, wow,
I
that
know
kind of
because
makes
I
sense.
text Nikki one night and I was like, estamos jodidas.
See?
So the title of the book is called It Didn't Start With You: How Inherited Family Trauma Shapes Who We Are and How to End the Cycle.
Hmm.
So I think it's so interesting, Nicte, because the reason why I told her that we were jodidas was because it talks about like generational things. Like there's some
Mhm.
stuff that could have happened with our, because Nicte and I are first cousins, just in case anyone doesn't know. But it's like you don't even know what happened to your great great grandmother and some trauma that she had, and it has been a generational curse
Mhm.
going down. Like it made me think about like families that have like women have always been sexually abused in some
Mhm.
capacity, or either molested or violated, or violadas or whatever. But
Mhm.
it can tap you, even though I was, let's say that that happened to my great great grandmother. Maybe
Mhm.
I wasn't raped, but maybe I have, some people have, like they go into sexual addictions, or just
Mhm.
different things. And it could be also obesity. It could
Mhm.
be that thing, that big word, fear. It could be
Mhm.
stuff that is just passed down from generations to generation.
Yeah, it's really crazy just how, and it's things that we never know. Like, I don't know why I react this way. It doesn't make
Yeah,
sense, but this is
that's
just,
why estamos
mm,
jodidas, because we don't
see?
know.
Yeah. And it was saying in the book, it's saying that, and like I'm listening to all the like the oh man, I'm jodida like part where it's like, oh, this is not good, this is not good. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready to get to the part where like, how can we make this better?
Yeah.
Because it really is, some of the stories that the author shares from when he was doing psychotherapy with his patients. I think one of the ones he was sharing was that the grandson had been, ¿cómo se dice? Lo culparon unjustly, that they had blamed him unjustly for some sort of crime. And he ended up going to jail even though he was innocent. And when he got out, he was trying to go to therapy for that because he felt very vengeful for the old business partner that lied about that. And when they were talking about that vengeful emotion that he was feeling. And he learned that his grandfather, or his father's, like, I think it was like a grandfather, had committed a crime very similar at that same age in that similar scenario. And he actually committed the crime and got away with it, that he never served in prison. So it was crazy how they figured that out, and that pattern that repeated itself. And he was able to kind of help him process that emotion to not do anything bad about that. But it's things that we wouldn't know if we don't talk about these. And I think too, within our communities as Latinos, even I think that that's more with like the cultural communities, is very common that you don't talk about things, you just suck it up and you move on. And I think there's that missing piece that, yes, it's good to be strong, but sucking it up and not addressing some of those things really can affect you in the long run. So yeah, that's a fascinating book, but it's also like, oh goodness, like
Yeah.
there's some things
So
I want to
again, if
find
you
out
guys
what
want to read
happened.
it, it's called It Didn't Start With You by Mark Wyland. Wollynn. Really, really good book. I'm on chapter 3,
Really?
but it's very interesting. But about that, Nikte, because I was
Mhm,
thinking about that. I was like, man, this is really frustrating. That's why I sent you that text message. It's
mhm,
frustrating because I don't know what happened, right? So it made me think about that piece, like today. Like, what can I do about that, right? About things that I
mhm,
don't even know that happened. So that's when I said to myself, like, have grace, like, give yourself grace, number one. And number two, because I have faith in God, I have to know that those things are broken. Whatever those negative things are, like,
mhm,
let's break them now. Because
mhm,
I was getting so caught up in, like, why do I feel this? Like, where is it coming
mhm,
from? Like, how did it get here? Versus let me put my energy into, let me put a stop to it.
mhm,
Let me not, like, sometimes I have these thoughts of something bad happening to my kids, right?
mhm. Me too.
So as
Yeah.
soon as I get that thought, what I do is I combat the thought. So I start thinking about my kids and their wedding day and when they have
Mm,
children, and then I'm taking care of their children, and when
mm,
I'm old. So I start to visualize
mhm.
our future together, that they're still there, because I want to do the total opposite of my negative thought, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. So
Yep.
we could do those same things, and I don't know what this author is going to talk about later to get rid of those, those inherited negative things. But I
Mhm,
know for me right now, that's what I do. It could be, holding a grudge, because I don't consider myself to be someone that holds a grudge. But
mhm.
sometimes I say something and my fiance will say something like, your mother does that. Like, why are you upset? You're doing the same thing she does. And I'm like, what? You know? So
Yeah.
I have to catch myself, because sometimes we criticize our parents, but we're like them
Mhm,
because of this DNA thing, and the generational things. And I try to
mhm.
focus more on the positive things.
Yeah.
Like with my mom, we always talk about que ella es mula, right? So like she's stubborn, right? Like a mule, 'cause mules are stubborn.
Uh-huh.
But I tried to change, instead of saying mula, is that she has persistence, right? And
Mm,
persistence is such a more positive word. And she has been
mhm,
able to accomplish things in her life because of
mhm.
her persistence. Her
Yeah.
stubbornness has been able to keep her from doing certain things, but her persistence has been able to allow her to accomplish many things. So
Mhm,
it's like you said, Nick, that is the way that you see things. So would you
mhm.
rather be called stubborn or persistent? So we try to use the word persistent now instead of
I
stubborn.
love that. I love that. And it's that perspective shift that is so true. It's a beautiful way to put it. In that book, he does talk a lot about learning to, when you figure out what it is that's like frustrating you, learning to kind of come to peace with that, especially if it's your parents or your grandparents, which, can be a little challenging with some of the things that you may navigate. But I just feel like it is like when you were talking about that, where it's overwhelming and all these thoughts, like even with your kids, like I feel like there's, you and I might need to talk. There's got to be some sort of connection, because I was even thinking about maybe it has to do with the displacement that our family experienced in Colombia, back in the day when they had to leave their finca
And they did.
abruptly, like, and yeah, so I'm like, it could be those passed on like anxiety, DNA, that like something's gonna happen to my children because our family did live through that. So
Do
um
you has grandma ever told you that story?
yeah, she told it
Yeah,
to me, what was it, 2 3 years ago, like personally, like I heard it there and I was
yeah.
like, yeah,
I
it,
hope I don't get in trouble for saying this because I hope she's not listening. So we went to we have had conversations, and like
Mhm.
I record our conversations
Oh yes, yeah, I remember.
because I tell her all the time, like, tell us your story
Mhm.
because of your stories we're here and we can like really value what, because we're immigrants, right? And she
Yeah.
was like the first one to come here. So
Mhm.
everything that she has gone through, which was some of it is very painful, but she is
Mhm.
the reason we're here. uh and she's 88, you know and she continues to like do things that are like
Mhm.
remarkable.
Mhm.
And one day, maybe when she's not here, between Nicte and I, we're gonna publish a book with her stories, because I'm
Yes.
telling you, one time we drove. Oh, ella está escuchando. Oh, I guess she's listening. But one time we drove like 3 hours to Washington, D.C., and 3 hours back.
Mm.
And she told me so many stories. And I
Oh,
just love it because it's so much like tanta historia en una persona.
mhm.
Has
Oh,
de
I think my
venir
aunt's
aquí.
talking to me that I had to yes.
Oh
Oh
my
my
God.
goodness. You're
Yeah.
gonna have
So
to
my
sit her in
grandmother
front of a
is
camera.
listening. So I am going to
Yeah.
get in trouble.
Uh, but yeah, no, going back to that, like I think it is that it's tough to talk about painful experiences, but I think also it's healing in a way, and healing for future generations. Because when I was listening to that book and I was like, oh my God, this, and like things, from like my mom's experience that like I've had to like help, through the process, that I'm like, why me? Like, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to unbreak traumas and cycles that have been passed down? And I was like, well, it is what it is. And it's kind of like, at least we now have, and we've talked about this in the show, is that today we have a lot more tools than our ancestors did for anything, to be able to talk openly about these things, to, not be shunned for like, I know, no, no, don't say that. You got to like keep going, go, go, go. Like, it's become a lot more acceptable to be open and healing and talking about this, that you know what, like you said, Viviana, well, it's going to end with me. I'm going to change this perspective, and I don't want that to be passed down. And that's kind of where I'm at. It sucks, but it's well worth it to end at least a couple of cycles of trauma and acknowledge that. So
Yeah, but I think once we acknowledge them, we can break them. And I think that's the
yeah.
whole point, right? Like a couple of weeks ago, I did a talking circle with these ladies. It was like 10 Spanish ladies,
Hmm.
Hispanic ladies. And we were talking. And one of the questions that I asked them was, tell us about a traumatic event that you had happen to you, but you learned from it, right? And I'm
Hmm.
telling you, out of the 10 ladies, like seven of them cried when they were telling their story. And I was at the end, I was like, I loved that you guys cried today because it's part of the healing, and that they felt so comfortable sharing that with us. And we were learning from each other that
Yeah.
everybody goes through stuff, you know,
Hmm.
in different capacities, different levels. But at the end of the day, we all are going through something. It's just what do you do with
Hmm.
it? So it
Yeah.
was awesome to do that. It was
I
awesome.
love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was cool.
Being able to guide people through that process feels less lonely and less scary. And I think in that circle environment, it's a perfect way for you to have done that. So
Yeah, it was
thank you
awesome.
for
I loved
sharing
it.
that.
Yeah. So our time is up.
No,
It went by so quick.
it did. It did. It got like really good, like
Yeah.
um, conversational. So we encourage you guys to thank you, first of all, for everyone that was here, that was engaging with us. Definitely check out that book if you've been experiencing some things that you might want to get a different perspective on. I think that that's definitely opened my eyes. I know it's opened your eyes, Viviana, too. And if you have family that is going through things, do like Viviana and I, where we're kind of like listening to it together. So you're kind of like co-writing the wave of learning as
Yeah.
you navigate things.
Yeah, it's awesome. And as Maddie would say, we have to educate ourselves.
Yes.
We have to educate
Mhm.
ourselves. And I think today I didn't say that Latinos contribute $3.2 trillion to the USA economy.
Boom, 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 boom. Now, can you imagine how much more we'll contribute once we address these passed down, traumas of like, suck it up and don't talk about it? Like, nope, let's open
Yeah.
up and
So
grow.
every time I go to a meeting, which I go to a meeting at least once a week with the organizations that I work with, I always mention it because most of the meetings that I go to, it's about the community and how can we help the community. Da, 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 da.
Mhm.
So I always tell them, hey, did you guys know that Latinos contribute $3.2 trillion to the US economy? And that's not really counting all the money
Mhm.
because all the money was not counted.
Yep. That's
So
even gonna
yes.
get higher and higher.
Yeah, it's gonna contribute. And Nicte and I and Maddie, we contribute to that number.
Mhm.
And they didn't even talk about our cash. So imagínate. No contaron los cienes que tengo en la cartera.
Yep.
Ah, but thank you so much. I hope you guys have an amazing week. Tangi said, great show. I was cooking. Thank you for the share. Have a blessed week. Yes, we want everybody to have an amazing, healthy week and continue to put the work in, continue to do self improvement, and don't forget to do some self love at least once a week. You could do it once a day, but you should do it
Mhm.
at least once a week. And it doesn't have to be big, it could be something small. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yes. Absolutely.
Um, I hope you have a great week in Hawaii, Nicte.
Gracias, Viviana. Have an amazing week in Virginia.
Yes. Thank you, Mark, once again.
Thank you,
And we'll see
Mark.
you guys next Sunday at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time again.
Ciao. Gracias.
Ciao.
My fails all day, well, since yesterday, so I'm just gonna read today. So click, click, pose. Look closely. Can you see the void beneath the surface? In the eyes, the empty spaces, loneliness, screaming, crying, losing hope, begging for someone to notice, barely hanging on. A smile. It's what happens right before the break. Before the beast tears off my chest, the constant battle with this demon who threatens to drown me whole. I try to loosen from his grip. I swim up to the surface, hoping to get to breathe. Pose. For a second, I try hard to forget how the weight of the world pulls me down. At night, I can't sleep. Nightmares on Elm Street. I stay awake thinking of ways to stay alive, yet I close my eyes. I lay in a postpartum state, so when the Grim Reaper finds me, his job is more than halfway done. I am done, but I survive. For some strange reason, I get to do it again. It's Groundhog's Day. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. They all feel the same. I feel the same exact pain. I cast a lifeline into the world in desperate mode. Click, click, pose. My brain, unsteady, like an elephant walking a tightrope. Scattered puzzle pieces that can't seem to make a coherent thought. I think of Chesley, attorney, spokesperson, Miss USA, who had her shit together and still she killed herself. From the 29th floor, she jumped. Depression knows no gender, socioeconomic status. Hurt is hurt. Some can voice it better. Others get lost in the waves. Most days, I surf. It is on those better days I take selfies instead of asking for help. You never know what's been brewing when someone is in a dark place. So when you see those selfies, don't just click on the picture. Check on your strong friends.
Next. Next. Next.
Next.
Go for Caden. Yeah, man, I know. I'm stuck here at the DMV. Oh, yeah, they're asking me like the dumbest questions. Can I see well? Do I have a driver's license? Do I want to be an organ donor? Yeah, right. Right, yeah, my cousin was an organ donor. They probably just threw those things away. You can find whatever organ you want for $6,000. I'm serious, any organ. Just look around. It's all out there.
Next.
Listen, you don't want my organs anyway. I've been a smoker for years.
Okay, it's never great being stuck in line at the DMV with this guy.
I've watched YouTube videos. I know if you're an organ donor, they'll just let you die out there in the ER.
But I just can't take it anymore. Excuse me, sir. I couldn't help but overhear, and I think you got it all wrong. You should talk to a doctor.
A doctor?
I happen to have a doctor with me right here. Dr. Stephen Flam from Rush will tell you just how wrong you are.
I heard what you were saying, and you were completely wrong. Anyone can donate the gift of life. And as far as whether you're healthy or not, a physician will make that call.
See?
No doctor would ever take an organ from you that you actually need. We take an oath to do no harm. It's illegal to buy or sell organs, and you can't obtain one online. Organs are only given in a safe and respectful way in a hospitalized setting. We need donors of every age, and luckily for you, transplant docs like myself love to talk about the process. 17 people die every day waiting for an organ transplant. So at the DMV, on your driver's license, check the organ donation box. One donor can save up to 6 to 8 lives.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Flam. Thank you.
Okay, I'll check the box. Okay, it says Illinois residents. What about Indiana?
They're not going to take his brain, are they?
Are just so impressed with them. Like I said, we've been with them for years. I will recommend and refer anyone to them. We stand by A+ academics. They're the best.
A+ tutorial really did help me with all my grades. They all went up when I came to this place. And I would say I recommend this school to everyone.
So it's a really good environment to be in, especially for me because it makes me look up to my parents.
If you have students that need academic help, A+ Academics is the place to be. A+ Academics, what a great place to go for academics.
It's just a really great place to learn.